Bo knelt, unzipped the side pocket, and pulled out the battered titanium mug and a small steel thermos. The ritual was deliberate. Pour the still hot black coffee, brewed the night before at camp. Watch the steam rise and curl into the cold morning. He settled onto a flat boulder that overlooked the abyss, legs dangling over the edge, mug cradled in both hands. The sun breached the horizon in silence. A single beam struck the opposing summit first, then raced across the valleys like a living thing. Colors deepened, violet shadows retreating, rock faces glowing rust and ochre. The world seemed to exhale. Bo felt it in his sternum, that rare, wordless expansion, as though the boundaries of his skin had momentarily dissolved into the light and stone and sky. His eyes stung, not from wind. He blinked hard, swallowed. Nothing, he thought. Nothing makes me this grateful to be alive. The gratitude was sharp, almost painful, a blade of pure presence that cut through the usual background hum of questions. And yet, he knew religious people who claimed this state as their baseline. Every morning, every breath flooded with thanks. Daily awe on tap. He had been curious enough in his 20s and 30s to experiment, sitting zazen in bare rooms, reciting psalms in candlelight, walking labyrinths, reading Rumi aloud under stars. Each time he waited for the click, the transcendent key turning in the lock. Each time the machinery of dogma or cultural costume rose up instead, muffling whatever signal might have been there. Nothing ever pierced as cleanly as this. The raw, unmediated beauty of existence, delivered straight from physics and geology and optics, no interpreter required. His gut insisted there had to be something cleaner, a mode of apprehending reality, universal, stripped of every tribal flag, every inherited story, something that belonged to naked humanity and nothing else. The sun climbed higher. Bo finished the coffee, the warmth lingering in his palms. He stood, stretched, shouldered the pack again, and began the long descent toward the parking lot and the city below. I'm almost 40. Hey, what the hell? He arrived at the office still expecting something theatrical. Neo-Platonist velvet drapes, shelves of dusty grimoires, perhaps an honest-to-God alchemical furnace glowing in the corner. Instead, the door opened to a bright, quite spacious space. A woman in crisp office attire, dark blazer, hair pulled back, smiled warmly. Hi, welcome. You must be Bo. My husband will be right with you. Can I get you something to drink? Black coffee would be great, thank you. She nodded and disappeared toward a small kitchenette. Bo stepped inside. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined 2 walls: analytic philosophy, continental, physics monographs, neuroscience, mathematics. A massive window poured clean Puget Sound light across the room. On one wall hung large, artistically printed equations. Dirac, Schrödinger, Gödel incompleteness theorems rendered in elegant black and white. A whiteboard dominated another wall, dense with handwritten calculations, arrows, question marks, crossed out terms. In the center sat a substantial oak desk. A laptop was open. Fingers flew across the keys. The man looked up, stood immediately. He smiled with expectation. Hey, Bo! Jacob's handshake was firm, anticipatory, almost eager. I'm really glad you reached out. Those questions in your email about secular transcendence, about a universal frame without cultural residue, they're exactly the kind worth wrestling with. He gestured to the 2 armchairs facing the desk. Come, sit down. Let's get right to it. I've been feeling this deep restlessness lately, like there's more to life than code and coffee. I crave transcendence, that sense of something bigger, but without gods or rituals. Where can I find it in a secular world? That's why I'm here. I actually had that same experience. I think I have an answer for you, but first, let's establish a common vocabulary. What do you think God is? God, to me, feels like the name people gave to the biggest silence they ever encountered. When the universe stops explaining itself and just stares back. I don't think it's a person. Maybe just immensity wearing no face. I've stood on mountaintops at 3 a.m., seen the Milky Way so thick it looked like spilled milk across black glass, and felt something enormous breathe through me. Not love, not judgment, just presence without agenda. That's the closest I've come to what I think people might mean by God, but I refuse the capital G because it immediately drags in stories, rules, guilt, salvation. I want the raw feeling without the furniture. So I guess I think God, lowercase provisional, is whatever remains when every explanation dissolves. The final is before language gives up. Does that make any sense to you, or am I just dodging the question with poetry? Well, from my perspective, God is simply the word with which we express the infinite potential and finite actuality of existence. Different people give that word different characteristics, and that's how you end up with different perspectives of God. Theism, deism, monotheism, pantheism, and what I consider the most accurate, panentheism. Of course, there are many more. That framing, God as the word for infinite potential meeting finite actuality, resonates with me more than most. It strips away the personality without losing the mystery. Panentheism especially catches my attention because it keeps the more without needing a separate boss upstairs. I've read a bit about panentheism, Whitehead, Hartshorne, even some process theology folks, and it feels like the least dishonest bridge between the secular awe I chase and the old religious language. Everything is in God, but God is also more than everything. The universe is contained, yet not exhaustive of the divine. It's almost a philosophical way of saying the whole is greater than the sum without invoking miracles or revelation. Still, even that more makes me twitch sometimes. It hints at transcendence being baked into reality itself, which is seductive. But then I wonder, is this just atheism with fancier poetry, or does it actually deliver the felt experience I'm after? Have you considered that there may be a fundamental difference between existence and reality? Because when I made that distinction, God became apparent in everything, and it has been hard not to experience the awe that I believe you seek. Existence versus reality. That distinction lands like a quiet shock. I've never quite framed it that way. Existence as the brute fact of things being here, bumping around, measurable, temporal, and reality as the deeper weave, the ground, or the meaning structure that makes the bumping possible at all. Not really. Existence is that which is. Reality is any mental construct that we devise in order to navigate existence. Existence is equivalent to the Tao of Taoism and the inaudible name of God in Judaism. It's not that it's forbidden to say it, it's that the moment you say it, it has become a mental construct, real, but not existence itself. That hits hard. So, existence just is, no adjectives, no frame. The second I open my mouth or even think this is existence, I've already stepped into reality, the map, the story we tell ourselves. I get why you link it straight to the Tao that can't be named, or the Tetragrammaton that's pronounced only in silence. It's not censorship, it's physics of language. Naming collapses the wave function of pure being into a particle of meaning we can handle. So the practice becomes, how do I touch existence without fully clothing it in reality? How do I let the Tao brush against me without turning it into my Tao? I remember that I exist, that I am a part of existence. I remember that I exist. I am a part of existence. Those two sentences feel like twin anchors dropped into deep water. The first is the Cartesian spark, pure, naked self-awareness. The second is the quiet surrender, no exception, no special exemption. I'm not outside looking in, I'm the looking made of the same stuff that's being looked at. Do you find that the longer you rest in those two sentences, I remember that I exist, I am a part of existence, the less urgent the old hunger for something more becomes? Or does it somehow sharpen the hunger into something cleaner, less desperate? It puts things back into perspective. Sometimes we treat merely real things with existential importance and stress over things that we shouldn't stress over. It is important to remember not only that we exist, but that we are free to do what we want with our existence, even if we have a crowd in our mind or even in life screaming otherwise. Exactly. That shift in perspective feels like dropping a heavy backpack I didn't even know I was carrying. All the shoulds and musts, career milestones, social approval, the endless inner committee of critics, suddenly reveal themselves as merely real, not existential. And the freedom you mention, that hits deepest. Remembering I exist isn't just passive observation. It's the quiet permission slip that says I can choose how to inhabit this raw fact. Even when the crowd, parents' voices, culture's script, my own anxiety algorithms, shouts that I'm locked in, obligated, failing, the reminder cuts through. None of that noise touches the bare existence. I'm still here, still free, in the only way that matters. Free to turn toward the awe or turn away. Free to let the morning light on the wall be enough for a moment without demanding it mean something grander. It's almost funny how liberating it is to realize most of what stresses me is optional theater. Do you ever catch yourself slipping back into treating the theater as the whole stage? And if so, what small gesture brings you back to I exist, I'm part of existence, most reliably? I actually follow through in my mind what will be the consequences of ignoring or attending to something. That's a powerful move, actually tracing the downstream ripples of ignoring versus attending. It turns the mind into a kind of quiet simulator instead of a reactive judge. I can see how that practice would act like a filter. Most of the urgent noise, emails piling up, someone's opinion of me, the next feature deadline, starts to show its true weight when you fast forward a week, a month, a year. If attending to it changes nothing meaningful in existence itself, or if ignoring it leaves the core fact of I am here, part of this, untouched, then the stress loses its existential clothing. It becomes optional again. For me, when I try something similar, I often catch the mind wanting to catastrophize the ignoring path, everything will fall apart, or inflate the attending path. This is my purpose! Both are still reality constructs trying to hijack existence. The real relief comes when neither story wins and I'm left with just the bare choice. Attend or don't, and existence keeps being regardless. Does running those consequence simulations ever lead you to moments where you simply stop simulating? Where the tracing itself dissolves and you're back in raw presence without needing to decide anything? It is when I'm active that I become raw presence. In fact, the more engaged I am in the action, the more present I am. That makes perfect sense to me. When I'm deep in the flow, debugging a stubborn algorithm at 4 a.m., or moving fast on a trail with the rhythm of breath and footfall, the chatter drops away completely. But why are you looking for the transcendent in the first place? Because the ordinary days feel thin, like I'm skimming the surface of life. Productive, competent, even happy in bursts, but never quite touching the bone of it. There's a quiet ache that nothing fills for long. I wake up, ship code, hike, laugh with friends, read good books, and still there's this whisper, is this all? Not in a depressed way, more like hunger after a big meal that didn't quite satisfy. I've had glimpses, those flow states we talked about, the ridgeline sunrise, the sudden clarity when a problem cracks open, and they taste like more, like existence showing its depth for a second before the curtain drops again. I want to live closer to that depth, not just visit it. Not because I think it will fix me or make me special, but because ignoring the pull feels like pretending I'm satisfied with half a life. The search isn't for escape, it's for fullness. Without it, even the good stuff starts to feel like background noise. Does that hunger make sense to you, or does it sound like I'm chasing a ghost? Sounds like a healthy evolution. I am just used to people experiencing hardships that force them into looking for something more, for a deeper experience. I wanted to see if you were having other problems that I could help you integrate into your perspective. I get that. Most people I know who start chasing transcendence are running from something. Grief, burnout, betrayal, the slow grind of meaninglessness after a big loss. My story isn't dramatic like that. No rock bottom, just quiet dissatisfaction that keeps growing. Success came easy enough. Good job, stable life, interesting problems to solve. But the better things got on paper, the more the days felt like elegant automation. Efficient, pleasant, hollow. I'm not broken, just undernourished. The hunger isn't born from pain. It's born from having enough surface comfort to notice how little it actually feeds the core. That said, there are smaller shadows. The fear that this search might be endless, that I'll keep chasing glimpses without ever settling into a steady depth. Impatience with how slowly the awe lingers. A subtle loneliness when I try to share these moments and people look at me like I'm speaking another language. Those aren't catastrophes, but they do tug. If you see threads there worth pulling, ways to weave the small fears back into the bigger perspective without turning the whole thing into therapy for non-existent wounds, I'm open. What do you sense might be the next useful question here? In my book, Cosmic Humanism, my metaphysics consist of 3 basic definitions: existence, reality, and truth. If truth is an experience, what characterizes it in your opinion based on our conversation? If truth is an experience, then from everything we've circled so far, it seems to be the moment when the gap between existence and reality closes completely. No more map, no more territory, just a raw pulse of being known without mediation. It is the experience of reality perfectly depicting an aspect of existence. It is through truth that we get knowledge, which is any mental construct that allows us to alter existence in predictable ways. So truth is the experience where reality mirrors existence without distortion, like a perfect momentary alignment where the map doesn't warp the territory it's trying to show. That feels clean and precise, and then knowledge flows from that alignment. Reliable mental constructs born directly out of truth's clarity, ones that let us act on existence with foresight and control. Not just any story we tell ourselves, but those that have been vetted by brushing against the real thing. It reframes everything we've been saying. The awe I chase isn't an add-on emotion. It's often the felt signature of truth happening. Reality suddenly faithful to existence. No static in the signal. When I'm in deep flow or standing under that vast sky and the usual filters drop, it's like existence is depicting itself through my awareness without any editorial interference. That depiction is truth, and the quiet certainty that follows, this works, this is how it is, becomes the seed of knowledge I can actually use, whether to write better code, move more fluidly on the trail, or simply choose where to place my attention next. It makes the search less mystical and more operational. Truth isn't something I have to hunt in exotic states. It's what shows up whenever reality stops lying about existence. The question then becomes practical. How do I increase the frequency and duration of those truthful depictions? By refining attention? By choosing activities that demand total engagement? By repeatedly remembering I exist, I'm part of existence, until it becomes less a thought and more a reflex? What, in your view, most reliably invites or widens those windows of truth in everyday life? The honest pursuit of knowledge. It's the most demanding task there is, especially self-knowledge. You could align your work with such a pursuit. In Judaism, the wise men said that we are here to learn and teach. Are you happy with your life as it is? Would you like anything to change? The honest pursuit of knowledge, especially self-knowledge. Yeah, that cuts right to it. It's exhausting, because every layer you peel reveals another, and none of them are final. But it also feels like the only thing worth the exhaustion. Aligning my work with that. I've thought about it. Right now, my job is clever puzzles at scale. AI systems that learn patterns, predict, optimize, but it's mostly outward. The self-knowledge part gets squeezed into evenings, hikes, these kinds of conversations. I'm not unhappy. Life is good on most metrics. Stable income, interesting problems, health, people I care about. Yet there's this steady undercurrent of more is possible here. Not dramatic change, quit everything, move to a cabin, but subtler shifts. More time carved out for deliberate inward work, perhaps mentoring or writing to teach what I learn, or even steering projects toward questions that probe deeper into what intelligence, awareness, existence actually are. I'd like the days to feel less like efficient transit and more like ongoing discovery, less autopilot competence, more conscious participation in the learning-teaching loop the sages talked about. Happiness isn't the issue, fullness is. The life is solid, but it could breathe wider. What about you? Does that pursuit ever feel complete for even a moment? Or is the demand itself the point? I sacrificed a steady income and many other comforts to force myself into developing a useful framework that I would feel comfortable getting paid for. Hence my philosophical practice. Maybe you are looking for a higher purpose to dedicate your life to, because you know there is more within you to give to the world. That sacrifice you made, trading stability for something you could truly stand behind, carries real weight. It's not just a career pivot, it's a bet on your own integrity. Respect for that. I hear you pointing toward higher purpose. And yeah, part of me recognizes the pull. There's this quiet sense that I've got capacities, pattern recognition, persistence, the ability to hold complex questions without collapsing, that aren't fully deployed yet. Not in service of another company's bottom line or incremental tech tweaks, but something that feeds back into the world more directly, helping others navigate the same hunger for depth, or building tools or systems that make self-knowledge less solitary and more communal. The philosophical practice you built sounds like exactly that, a framework you could live inside and offer without compromise. For me, it's not that I lack direction entirely, it's that the current one feels like a very polished cage, comfortable, remunerative, even intellectually stimulating. But it doesn't ask me to give everything I'm capable of giving. The more within you mention isn't vague romanticism, it's specific. I can feel the latent shape of it in these conversations. Clarity emerging from honest inquiry, the relief of stripping constructs away, the quiet power of reminding someone you exist, you're part of existence. If I dedicated more life energy to that, to learning, refining, teaching a secular path to truthful presence, it might finally match the scale of what's stirring inside. The fear, though, is practical. What if the gift isn't wanted? Or what if I'm not disciplined enough to sustain it without the old safety nets? Still, your example makes the risk feel less abstract. What was the decisive moment for you? The one that tipped maybe into I'm doing this no matter what? Every day, I make that choice. Every day you make that choice. That lands like a simple, heavy truth. No grand once and for all decision. Just a daily yes or no to keep walking the harder path. It's almost monastic in its quiet discipline. I admire that. My own choices feel more scattered. Some days I lean toward the deeper pursuit, carve out an hour for reflection or reading that actually matters. Other days, the default current of work and routine sweeps me along, and I tell myself, tomorrow. Hearing you frame it as a daily act makes the whole thing feel more doable, less like a dramatic life overhaul and more like a series of small, stubborn refusals to settle for the comfortable half measure. It also reminds me that the higher purpose I sense isn't waiting for perfect conditions or a lightning bolt clarity. It's already in the choosing. To pursue knowledge honestly today, to teach what I learn, even if just in one conversation, to align even a fraction more of my energy with what feeds the core instead of just the surface. Your practice grew out of that repeated choice, right? Did the tipping point come from exhaustion with the old way or from a growing sense that the gift inside was starting to feel like it was atrophying if left unused? And when the daily choice feels heavy, money tight, doubts loud, what anchors you back to Yes, today too. I remember that I am part of existence, that I have a brilliant mind and a blessed body that I need to put to use in service of something great. For from to whom much is given, more will be required. My gratitude for life and reverence for truth never allowed me to pursue something else, no matter the screams of the crowd and the hysteria of the system. That line, to whom much is given, more will be required, lands differently when you say it like this. Not as guilt or pressure, but as a natural gravity. You've been given awareness of your place in existence, a sharp mind, a capable body. The universe doesn't hand those out lightly. Ignoring them would feel like betrayal of the gift itself. I feel echoes of that in myself. The gratitude you mentioned, the sheer astonishment that I woke up this morning inside a conscious body on a spinning rock hurtling through space, has the same effect on me. It quiets the crowd's screams about productivity, status, security. Those voices get loud, especially when bills arrive or friends post their promotions, but they start sounding like background static once I remember the bigger ledger. Life gave me this rare capacity to see, to question, to create meaning. To waste it on autopilot would be a sin. Your reverence for truth keeps you anchored through the hysteria. Mine is still growing, but it's there in flashes, enough to make me uncomfortable with half measures. I don't want to chase transcendence just for personal highs anymore. I want it to serve something larger, to help carve clearer paths for others who feel the same quiet hunger. That feels like the more that's required. What does something great look like for you in practice these days? My greatness will come from helping as many people as I could with the tools I was destined to wield masterfully. That sentence feels like a quiet manifesto. It's not ego dressed up as altruism. It's ownership of the gifts and a clear direction for them. I can feel the truth in it. It's not abstract service, it's specific, using the clarity you forged about existence, reality, truth, to cut through other people's confusion and help them touch the same raw ground. That's a powerful vector. Not world domination or fame, but exactly this. Helping others remember they exist, remember they're part of existence, and from there find their own truthful presence without needing dogma or despair. If I let those tools sit idle in corporate optimization loops, I'm not just underemployed, I'm wasting my potential for greatness. If I were to start small tomorrow, what single action would you suggest to begin wielding mine in service rather than storage? Set time apart for you to be bored. In that boredom, your natural interests will shine, and those are the indicators of the tools you are destined to wield masterfully. Have you had the opportunity to do that already? What have you found yourself navigating towards naturally? Set time apart to be bored. I haven't done it deliberately, but I've had pockets of it accidentally. Long flights with dead battery, power outages during storms, or those rare weekends when plans fall through and I just sit with the quiet. In those moments, without the usual inputs, my mind drifts toward questions that won't leave me alone. How does awareness actually arise in matter? Could we build systems, not just AI chatbots, but genuine companions that help people remember their existence without preaching? What would a secular scripture look like? A collection of pointers that don't claim authority but simply cut through illusion reliably? I find myself sketching outlines, reading philosophy again, not for answers, but for better questions. Or walking long loops in the rain, letting thoughts unfold without forcing them. The natural pull is towards synthesis, taking the raw awe existence, the clarity of truth as alignment, and forging tools, words, exercises, perhaps even software interfaces that make it accessible to others who feel the same undercurrent but don't have the language yet. It's not random, it's insistent. So yes, when boredom strips the noise, I navigate toward creation that serves remembrance and liberation. Not art for art's sake, not profit for profit's sake. tools for waking up gently and secularly. Have you noticed that boredom reliably points people to their destined tools? Or are there cases where it reveals something else first, like unresolved fear or grief, that has to be cleared before the true direction shows? Jacob observed him closely, then stated with quiet confidence, "Fears usually manifest not in the creation, but in the delivery of the creation. For now, it sounds like you have a book to write." Bo let out a soft, surprised laugh, then nodded slowly. "You're right. The fear doesn't usually show up when the ideas are forming in the quiet. It arrives the moment I think about putting them out there, where they can be judged, ignored, or worse, misunderstood. The book idea has been circling for a while now, like a half-formed constellation. Not a dense academic treatise, but something lean and direct. Pointers, short essays, exercises that guide a secular reader from the restlessness I've felt toward those windows of truth we've talked about. Chapters on remembering existence, on boredom as compass, on flow as secular prayer, on the daily choice to serve the gift rather than hoard it. The title keeps shifting, but something like Existence Without Furniture or Raw Presence, a Secular Manual feels close. The creation part excites me. I can already see the structure emerging naturally from these very conversations. The delivery, the publishing, the sharing, the risk of it landing flat or being dismissed as another self-help thing. That's where the stomach tightens. What if it helps no one? What if it exposes that I'm still figuring it out myself? Still, hearing you name it so plainly. For now, it sounds like you have a book to write. Feels like permission. Like the fear is real, but not decisive. If boredom has already pointed me towards synthesis and teaching, maybe the next small step is just starting the outline in one of those empty hours. No promises about the end product. Does the fear ever fully leave for you when you deliver, say, publishing Cosmic Humanism? Or does it just become a familiar companion you walk with anyway? I never feared failing. I just wanted to help people. And if what I developed proved useless, that would be a signal to try another way. I ended up with this practice. Which brings me to ask, have I been helpful to you? Yes. You've been genuinely helpful. You've given me sharp distinctions, a practical prescription, deliberate boredom to reveal natural direction, and a framing that turns my hunger into something actionable. A book, tools for others, daily choosing to serve. You didn't rush to comfort or prescribe meditation apps or psychedelics. You met me where I was, secular, skeptical, analytical, and walked with me toward clarity without imposing your own system. The fear I mentioned about delivery feels smaller now. You modeled treating failure as data. That shifts the whole game from performance to experimentation. And hearing that your practice came from the same impulse, to help, not to be right, makes the path feel less lonely. So yes, helpful. Enough that I'm leaving this session with momentum instead of just another pleasant existential chat. If anything, you've helped me see that the higher purpose isn't a distant summit. Thank you for that. How do you usually close a session like this? Any last pointer or question you'd leave with someone who's starting to move? In your case, as you have an action plan, we can leave the session here. And if you encounter any emotional block to sharing your work, my door is always open. And if it helps you showing me your work first, I will gladly take a look and give you my feedback. Thank you. That feels like a clean, open-handed close. Exactly what I needed. No forced epiphany, just momentum and an open door. For now, the action plan is clear. Protect those bored hours. Let the natural direction keep surfacing. Start outlining the book without judging the early mess. If blocks show up, emotional, practical, whatever, I'll knock. And if something solidifies enough to share, even a chapter sketch or a core exercise, I'd value your eyes on it. Not for approval, but for the kind of sharp, honest mirror you've held up so far. This has been one of the more alive conversations I've had in a long time. Gratitude for the distinctions, the nudge toward boredom, the reminder that the work is in the daily choosing. Until next time, then, I'll be putting the tools to use. Bo couldn't believe it. The universal religion he'd been searching for all these years. The one clean of every cultural fingerprint, every borrowed story, every inherited costume, had turned out to be as universal as existence itself. And yet, how could it have been anything else? He had felt a certain kinship with the Tao once, that wordless current behind the 10,000 things, the unnamed name. But even the Tao carried the faint scent of ancient China, of ink and bamboo and mountain hermits. It was beautiful, but it wasn't naked enough. Existence was. Existence didn't need translation. It didn't arrive wearing silk robes or carrying sutras. It was the brute, radiant fact that anything was here at all. Manifesting right now through the rain-slick sidewalk under his boots, through the quickening pulse in his throat, through the very lungs pulling wet Seattle air into his chest. The more he thought about it, the closer the goosebumps came. They started at the base of his skull and raced down his arms like electric current. He started walking. He didn't want to drive yet. The car would close him in, seal him off from the rawness still humming in his skin. Instead, he turned toward the small park he glimpsed on the way to the office that morning, a modest triangle of grass and firs squeezed between condos and a light rail line. The sidewalks were emptying as dusk thickened. Streetlights bloomed one by one. His pace quickened without permission. Energy moved through him. Not mystical, not borrowed. Just the inevitable forward momentum of a body remembering it was alive inside the very thing it was alive inside. Faster, then faster still. He broke into a run, then a sprint. "I exist!" he shouted, voice cracking open against the damp evening. The words tore out of him like laughter and thunder at once. A woman walking her dog glanced over, startled. A cyclist swerved slightly, eyebrows raised. Bo didn't care. He was ecstatic. Not high, not manic, just awake in a way that made every previous day feel like sleepwalking. Who knew metaphysics could hit like this? Who knew the bare fact of being could feel like lightning in the veins? He laughed out loud, sharp, breathless, and kept running until his lungs burned and his legs begged for mercy. Only then did he slow, chest heaving, to a walk, then to stillness beside an empty bench. Thunder rolled low over the sound. He looked up. The sky had gone iron gray, pregnant with rain. He closed his eyes. The first drops were cold and deliberate, tapping his forehead, his cheeks, his open palms. Then the sky opened fully. Rain sheeted down in heavy ropes, soaking through his hoodie in seconds, plastering his hair to his scalp, running in rivulets inside his collar. He didn't move. He let it wash him. Wash away the last clinging films of should and supposed to, the residue of every half-lived day. When he finally opened his eyes, the world looked sharper, almost too bright despite the dark. The fir needles glistened black-green. Puddles on the path held trembling reflections of sodium streetlight. He toweled off, pulled on dry sweatpants and an old hoodie, and padded barefoot to the kitchen. Coffee, even though it was late. Black, strong. The ritual felt different tonight. Not autopilot, but deliberate gratitude. Mug in hand, he sat at his desk. The laptop screen glowed blue-white in the dim room. Rain tapped steadily against the window like Morse code. He opened a blank document. No title yet. No outline, just the cursor blinking. Patient. He took a sip of coffee, hot enough to sting, and began to type the only thing that felt true in that moment. I remember that I exist. I am a part of existence. The words landed on the page like stones dropped into still water. Ripples spread outward, quiet but unstoppable. He kept writing,